Hello, everyone, and welcome to our monthly NJBIA Business Growth Roundtable, where I am happy to be joined once again by the fabulous Anthony Arena, who's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on at NJBIA these days.
Thank you, Donna. Good morning, everyone. Or I should say good afternoon. Just a little touch base, a little housekeeping right now with NJBIA and what's going on this week. We have our diversity, equity, inclusion, and corporate not-for-profit worlds taking place at the Delta Hotels on April 11th from 8:30 to 12 noon. It's in Island, New Jersey. If you're interested, you can check it out on our website, njbia.org. A couple other things that are coming up. We have our State of the State manufacturing event on May 20th at Cooper's Riverview in Trenton, New Jersey, and our healthcare symposium taking place on May 22nd at the Pines Matter in Edison, New Jersey. And just to give you some insight to NJBIA for all of you that are new, we are the nation's largest statewide business association. We represent about 1/4 of all New Jersey employees. And we offer customized development opportunities with visibility through our magazine, our website, our podcast, our TV show, and of course, our sponsoring our events throughout the year. And we also have some other money-saving discounts on business products and services you're already paying for, such as payroll, healthcare, training, a 401k solution, and 24-hour HR support. Again, like Donna said, I am Anthony Arena. I'm one of the executives here at NJBIA. If you need anything, please reach out to me. I'll put my information in the chat. And now I will turn it over to Vicki Hart of Paradigm, and she will start this session off with us.
Well, thank you so much, Anthony. It is terrific to be here. I am Vicki Hart, Director of Client Engagement at Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are an award-winning strategic agency, and we're recognized for our excellence in assisting businesses in a complex sale and enhancing the efficiency of sales teams. How do we get such remarkable results? By leveraging websites as powerful marketing tools, implementing strategic methodologies to drive conversions, and employing cutting-edge sales and marketing automation to streamline operations. So if you're seeking to expand and elevate your business or inject purpose into your lead generation efforts, let's connect for a meaningful conversation and see how we can help you achieve your goals. Now, I have to tell you, we find complete value in having friends. It's important to have friends, and our sponsors are our friends. This does not happen without our sponsors. So I'd like to thank Kim Luthi for her continued support for the Business Growth Roundtable. Kim is a certified financial planner. She's a strong advocate for her clients, both financially and personally. And beyond her credentials and achievements, she brings a wealth of experience. 35 years, not sure how that's possible, and a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities for planning a life well deserved, which I love that statement. Kim believes in the power of education and collaboration, as you can tell by her upcoming lineup of webinars and events. Okay, so this is quite impressive. Join Kim and Kate Garzon for guiding parenting support for a webinar on your body budget. Your own body budget influences how you perceive and react to stimuli, including stressors. Harnessing your budget will contribute to your overall well-being. Fascinating topic. So join her April 23rd at 11 a.m. And unlocking your inner warrior. It's paramount for you to protecting you and your wealth. Join Kim and Christina Ioannidis of A Fabulous and Fearless for a Woman's Night Out. Join Kim and Christina for ways to protect you. Christina she's completely impressive. She's a 6-time world karate champion. Hello, I'm a little lazy. Enjoy some wine, cheese, and raise your preparedness, confidence, and resourcefulness. I've heard Christina speak before. She's amazing. Thursday, April 25th from 5 to 7 at the Morris County Conference Room. And finally, get ready for a webinar series in May about the productivity wheel. This tool, when you applied, you can serve as a catalyst for optimization and more balance, to be more balanced, be efficient, and use your time and energy. Collaborating with Sarah Madera from Plan Creativity, Kim and Sarah help you frame ways to free up and move time. Hello, moving time, amazing. And dispense your efforts in areas where you can bring joy. So that is coming in May. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. Kim can drop some links. And also please reach out to Kim for these events. Again, Kim Luthi, she is on LinkedIn and she can share all sorts of information with you. Kim, drop your information. That would be amazing. Now, our next sponsor, what can I say about Sandler Training? The answer is not enough. Let me emphasize the profound impact that Sandler Training has had on me and my team. Our transformation from a 40% to a staggering 70% close rate speaks volumes about the effectiveness of this program. I recently attended the Sandler Summit in Florida, yes, sunny Florida, and it served as a refresher course. And I have to say, the results are nothing short of astonishing. It reignited my passion and honed my skills to leverage this powerful selling system. So it's not only me as the director of client engagement, but my entire team is Sandler trained. So investing in Sandler isn't just about improving your sales. It's about investing in the future of your business and securing your success. So trust me, it is a game changer that you simply cannot afford to overlook. So please reach out to Cal, drop in your contact information. Make sure that you reach out to Cal. He is a terrific resource. And then we're moving into, these months keep moving by. I do not even know how we are talking about May. Next month, join us and Heather Hamilton, and we will discuss the importance of the invaluable insights on Google's latest update and what you need to do, how AI is affecting the world of search. Our SEO expert, Heather Hamilton, is the founder and owner of Well Optimized SEO, and will break down Google's recent update as well as provide practical tips. I don't know about you, but SEO is a whole new world, and Heather is a tremendous resource. She is a partner of Paradigm, and we are delighted to partner with her. Specifically, we'll discuss the Google update that's transformed SEO, Google's latest approach to the quality ranking, quality, not quantity, how user experience will now impact your site's ranking, and the role of AI. Woo, that was a mouthful. We have so many amazing things coming up. Please make sure that you join us. It is every second Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I think, Donna, I have spoken enough, so now I'm going to pass the baton off to you.
Well, I thank you, Vicki Hart. So I'm Donna Miller. I am founder of C3 Workplace and Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting, where for 30 years, it's going to be 30 years in October, we've been helping teams to accelerate that growth. We do that by providing business advisory services, business support services, and office space on an as-needed turnkey basis. Our clients come to us because they know we'll build efficient systems that talk to each other, and we will help them to focus on that which really drives their business forward. And basically what we do is we help our clients to build companies that run without them involved in every little detail. Sounds kind of exciting. That's what I do. So contact us if you'd like to hear more. So without further ado, well, let me do a little housekeeping. So housekeeping. This is a Zoom webinar, as you all know, because you're smart people. You're also smart people. Use the chat. Introduce yourself. See if there's someone there that you want to talk to. This is virtual networking. You are in a room with almost 100 other people who want to know about the same topic that you want to know about, and that accelerates the know, like, trust process, which we will be talking about today. So a little bit of housekeeping. Use the chat to introduce yourself. We will allow time later for Q&A. But I will ask you to put your questions in the Q&A section, not the chat. It gets a little unwieldy. And the fabulous Kelly Laurel will join us a little later in the show to facilitate some Q&A. So without further ado, let me bring my new friend, Jeff West, to the stage. Come on down, Jeff. There he is. So Jeff, you know, he's a consummate professional. For 30 years, he's been creating amazing sales results, sales teams. He's a speaker. He's an author. And what's really kind of fun is As some of you may recall, last January we had Bob Burg on, who is co-author of The Go-Giver. And then Bob and Jeff just wrote a new book, which you have to get, and we'll get the links to you, but it's called Streetwise to Saleswise. They co-authored that. Bob reached out and said, Donna, you got to have Jeff on your show. And boy, was Bob right. So I have read the book. And as I said to Jeff, I think I have 17 pages of notes. And those of you who know me know I love this topic. So I have a few things I want to cover. I know I'm not going to get to it all, but Jeff has lots of ways for you to connect. And of course, as you know, I'm always happy to answer questions after the event. But let's just start at the beginning, because Jeff, your beginning is compelling. And your beginning has a lesson in it that I believe has been a theme in my life, which is the worst thing that happens often turns out to be the best thing that happens. So talk to us a little bit about how you began this journey.
Well, thank you so much, Donna. I am so honored that you all wanted to have me on today. It really means a lot. I actually got started a long time ago, a minute or three ago in sales. It's been 30 to 40 years now. I have 30 years worth of sales leadership, sales management. But the majority of that time was spent as an entrepreneur in the insurance industry. And when I got started in that industry, I laugh and tell people had just gone through an 18-month period of time that could only be described as a dismal failure. And from that point, I mean, I was literally living in a mobile home in North Texas that was about 800 square feet, 2 bedrooms, raising my family in a place that the floor was even falling out in a few occasions. But from that, I was able to launch and build something that was very unique, a multi-million-dollar career in the insurance industry. I was around some great people, but it's kind of funny. What really made that change for me is there was a day that I just drew a line in the sand, and I realized, you know what? I don't care what it takes. Whatever I have to do to make sure that my children don't grow up like this is what I'll have to do. And so I drew that line in the sand. And a lot of people talk about finding your why. For me, I found my strongest fusion point ever. My emotional attachment to my children, connected with the logic of what I was trying to get accomplished at the time. I never let it go again. And
I get
changed
it.
my world.
Yeah, and we will absolutely talk about fusion points. So first of all, Kelly, do me a favor and pop poll question number 1. You know, Vicky talked about Sandler and Cal Thomas from Sandler. If you all want to answer this very simple question. Cal Thomas provides Sandler training. I've participated in Sandler sales training. I've participated in integrity sales training. I've read many, many books. I think it's something that's super important to anyone who's responsible for business development. And I think good sales training is really about a process. I was talking to a friend recently, and Kelly, you can close it whenever you feel like you have enough results. I think I'm supposed to answer it.
Still, yes. We still got some answers coming in, but it looks like so far, pretty resounding no.
Woo! Yeah. I'm so excited. That's fabulous. Okay. So
Yeah, I'll end it now.
Okay. Sales training is really about, to me, it's about a process. And I was talking to a friend recently, and he said he went to, we all know this person. He has people walk on fire, but I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get in trouble. Huge motivator and inspirational. And this person dropped big money and they came back from walking on hot coals. And he said, I still don't want to make phone calls. So in my opinion, mindset will only take you so far. I think you need a process. So Jeff, talk to us a little bit about in Streetwise to Saleswise, what is the process that you have followed, the steps that you take? You know, obviously in short order, because we only have an hour here, but talk to us a little bit about the process.
Well, you know, in the process that we teach in Streetwise to Saleswise, we pretty much take someone from A to Z. And so we teach a process on prospecting. We teach a process on actually having the sales conversation. And the subtitle of the book is Become Objection Proof and Beat the Sales Blues. So we have a really strong process that when you follow that, it literally not only works with your prospect to solve that issue, but it does it in such a way that they bond with you. And so it makes a loyal relationship go from that point forward. But basically, any process, it's just a system that's got to be simple enough that you can follow it consistently and accomplish the goals that you're trying to get. Whether it's in your sales conversation itself, I use the term sales conversation instead of presentation just because the word presentation tends to make people talk a lot. But if you're having a sales conversation, then it's interactive. You're asking questions, you're getting responses, and it's much more a better way to go. But in the sales conversation itself, they're always generally there's going to be 5 parts to a sales conversation. You're going to have a rapport section where you're establishing a quick relationship. You're going to have a discovery section where you're asking questions so that you can understand your client's needs. You'll have a recommendation phase where you're going to basically, at that point, it is kind of a presentation. You're going to give your recommendations to your client or your prospect. Then you're going to have, of course, the close. And when you go through all of that, the most important part by far is that discovery section, where you're literally asking questions so that you can understand the issues, not just from your side of the equation, but from your prospect. Because the truth is, a prospect's not real concerned about your side of the equation. They're thinking about what's going on in their world. They're thinking about their business. And I always laugh and say it's kind of like the term value proposition, but it's a different twist. The value proposition is what you're looking for them to discover during that discovery phase. And it's not about your company. It's not about how great the product or service is. It's not about how you go above and beyond and exceed expectations. It's not even about how great we are as the salespeople or the owners of the company. It's not about that either. That value proposition is 100% about the value that they receive. It's how their world gets different if they work with us. So it's really their value from our proposition. And in that discovery section, if you ask questions, you think about what is their value, and then you ask the right questions, something kind of cool happens, because as salespeople, people don't automatically assume that the words coming out of a sales professional's mouth are true. They just don't. Thank goodness for politicians, because people always know that when they're not telling the truth because their mouth is moving. But when it comes to a salesperson, it's a little different. And you're starting off with that perspective out there sometimes. But if you ask the right questions, that decision maker is going to tell you what you would have told them anyway, because you ask great questions and you let them talk with you.
And what you say in the book, which is so big, and I'm going to pause and repeat, is that in discovery and then when you recap, the prospect ends up saying what the prospect needs to hear, and that creates something super powerful, a fusion point, of course, which we'll talk about, but it creates ownership. Now it came out of their mouth. It was their idea. It wasn't your idea. So it's a completely different approach to and you talk about having sales conversations. I always say that we're not selling, we're providing solutions, and solutions only work if they work for both parties. So that is that discovery process. So and I learned that Sandler refers to that as the pain conversation. You talk about having rapport and going through the discovery process, and you talk about these fusion points, which you describe as the science of decision making. And I do think that so much of sales is steeped in neurology, far more than we really give it credit for. So talk to us a little bit about, because it covers everything. Talk to us about your definition of those fusion points and your concept of priming the pump, which I love, and I know Rachel's going to watch this and she's going to love this piece as well.
Well, that's such a great point. When it comes to the psychology of sales, things that we've all learned over the years, we knew, okay, if we did certain things that worked, but we didn't understand why. Nobody taught what you and I are discussing now. They didn't teach the neurology of the brain and why that happens. But when you get down to it, I won't go into all of the science today because we have a limited amount of time. If you ever want to kind of check this out yourself on the science side of it, follow the works of Dr. Antonio Damasio. He's a professor of neuroscience at University of USC and then an adjunct professor at the Salk Institute. But basically, how people make decisions is this. Each time that we're faced with a decision, two things have to happen inside our brain. The emotional section of our brain, where we process all the things that joy, passion, all that, connects with the logical portion of our brain. Those two pieces have to communicate or no decision even gets made. And when someone is facing any decision, even if it's just to listen to the first conversation when you reach out to somebody, here's how they're going to make that decision. The logical part of their brain and the emotional side will connect. If the emotion going on in their brain at the time is a negative emotion, like fear, distrust, things of that nature, what happens is the brain sends an electric charge down into your torso. It's called a somatic marker, and it makes you feel something physiologically. You actually have a change in your body based on that. And when it's a negative emotion, that somatic marker produces feelings we don't like. We get anxious. We might get a little bit short of breath. We might get just tense. When that happens, when that decision's getting made and those emotions and that somatic marker connects with the logic of whatever you're facing at the time, it creates what I call a collision point. And our natural tendency, anyone's natural tendency, is to say no, to get away from it, to push back. You don't want to repeat that feeling because you don't enjoy it. But fortunately, the opposite is true as well. When that emotion in your brain is a positive emotion like joy, love, a sense of belonging, a sense of security. When that happens and it connects with logic, we like that feeling. The somatic marker it sends down into our body makes us feel good. We like that, the way it feels. We want to repeat the process. When that happens, when it connects with logic, we're more likely to say yes, move forward, create loyalty. It's a great way for any organization to create the loyalty inside their team, even if it's not in the sales process. But in the mix of all of that, that is what I call a fusion point, when that positive emotional energy connects with the logic of what you're doing. And a fusion point is basically that moment in time where logic and positive emotion merge and ignite, and it creates energy and it creates commitment and acceleration. It's how you hang into a career, even if it's tough sometimes. It's also how a prospect will say yes to you. Because when you're making those initial contacts with any prospect, you generally find that you're going to get one of three responses. You got one group that already kind of has an idea that they need what you do. They may even know your company name and recognize the brand. So when you reach out and they already know they kind of need that, it will create a fusion point. They'll have a positive emotional response because they think you may be able to help. So then when you're reaching out about the logic of what you're trying to do, they'll say yes to your appointment. We wish they would all go that way. But there are the two other groups that don't respond that way. You've got one group that will look at that initial sales contact as being, especially if it's unexpected, as being something that might be an interruption to their day. They may consider it an annoyance. They're not going to be as open to that. Some of them, depending on your industry, used to be in a very blue-collar industry in the industrial uniform business. They could even be a little bit rude at times. It set them off. So when that group does that, they're not going to give you the appointment. And then you got a third group, and they could care less. They have no thought about you whatsoever. They're focused on their day. They're distracted with the things in their world. And they won't do anything unless you give them a reason to. So that kind of takes us into the what we were talking about the priming, the prospecting pump. There are three ways you can actually increase the number of people who will even say yes to that initial appointment. The first group's just about always going to do that. But the easiest way to change it in the second and third group, Number one is by an introduction from someone that you already know, that already knows, likes, and trusts you, and they make that connection for you and the prospect. That creates a fusion point because it's a different animal to them. You also have the priming the pump process, which is really fun to say if you've had a cocktail at night. Priming the prospecting pump. It doesn't come out very well.
Yeah.
But and on the priming the prospecting pump, basically the goal that I teach people is you want to take the time to reach out and create 3 positive emotional experiences for that person before you ever ask for the first appointment. And I teach multiple ways in the book, as you know, in the book. You can send them some sort of a email that's like you find an online review of their company that was great, and you say, you print that off, and you might write a little note on it, and you get it in their hands. Or maybe you send them an email of an article that you think will be particularly valuable to that person, especially if it can relate back to what you do that you'll connect again later. There's a service that I know very well called Send Out Cards, and you can actually go on to that company's
Right.
website, and you can
Right.
upload the picture, put the note on there, get it out, and get it in their hands.
And I
Well,
say
what
that all
happens
the
if-
time. Yeah, talk about standing out. How many note cards did you get this week? Not many. Yeah. So priming the
Exactly.
pump is what Rachel and the Paradigm team and I would call is touch points. We have to create touch points. It takes something like 7 to 11 touch points. But this is a way to prime your prospects for the call to take
Absolutely.
the call and possibly take the meeting. I just before we shift, I do want to ask one thing is, so these fusion points, you talk about these fusion points, which are when positive things, connect with your emotions. When I was taught sales, and this is how I kind of go about it, and I guess these fusion points probably happen both in a positive way and a negative way, because what I think I've come to learn over my years is that people make change more often because of a problem than something that's going really well. So I think these fusion points are to help you take there's something that's going on that we can make better. That's the idea of us calling on these people. And just to put a capitalization on a point, you started out in the insurance industry. That cannot be an easy sale. Nobody wants to buy insurance. They wait until they absolutely have to. So I think the idea here is to create these fusion points where we move people from where they are to where we need them to be in a way where they think they're controlling the move. It's kind of the same thing,
Absolutely.
having them say what they need to hear. So, and to that end, you talk a little bit about in the book, and we'll kind of go through this, and because I'd love to get to becoming objection proof, but you talk about reframing and perspective and 5-step process, and you talk about reframing, and I love the way you started. It's like, I can't promise anything, and and I've talked about that in Sandler training. We call that making it okay to say no. And so I think talk to us a little about this concept of reframing it in mindset.
Well, everyone that we work with, professionally or personally, we see the world through our eyes. Everything that's happened all the way up to that point it kind of makes a frame, and that's how we see the world. And if a lot of prospects, they may or may not already know that they need you, and so at times there's going to be some things you have to shift. And one of the greatest ways that you can do that as a salesperson is kind of shift your own frame first and get used to the idea that of let's let people experience comfort as we're working with them. When you're setting that appointment, you say, I'm not sure this is going to be the perfect fit for you, but you know what? I'm 100% that you and I are the 2 best people to make that determination. And so it's making that connection there. And then as you're going through the process of what you're doing, one of the things that I always tell salespeople is that when you are working with an objection or you're working inside that sales conversation, just remember you're going to have several things happen. Number one, becoming, as we call it, objection proof, the easiest way to do that, number one, is to make sure you're doing great discovery. Because if you've asked the right questions in the discovery process and the prospect has then said all the things you would have told them anyway, and it's coming out of their mouth, so they believe it way more than it comes out of your mouth. Your discovery is good. You're not going to get as many objections because they're giving you their own take on it and it matches anyway. But if you do have to deal with something like that, I tell everyone, first off, remember, control your own emotions. Because when you get an objection as the person having that sales conversation, you are literally, you're going to have your own collision point in most cases. You're going to have a negative emotional response. You're afraid you're not going to make the sale. It's going to send that somatic marker into your body. And when you have that collision point, if you respond based on the way that made you feel, and you're going to come across as defensive, combative, debative, and you lose. But if you control your own emotions first, then it gives you the opportunity to be able to work with them and find a solution to whatever's going on. And when you do that, I say the process is, number one, empathize. You want to make sure that you understand, that you tell them that their concern is valid. I can see how that would be something you'd want to consider. You don't have to agree with them, but you want to let them know that you understand and you appreciate the fact that what they're saying means something. Then you're going to dig a little deeper so you can get a better handle on their perspective. Ask permission first and then say, do you mind if I ask you exactly what you mean there so that I can understand it better? And you get to the real objection sometimes that you don't get any other way. Then as you are doing that, you'll isolate the objection, which is basically just saying, hey, is there any other issue that would keep you from moving forward? And then this is where you get to the reframing part, and you can reframe in any section of whatever you're doing. The reframe is when you understand what they're saying, you're on the side there with them, you're trying to help them find a solution, you're brainstorming with them from their perspective, not you trying to make the sale. And then when you think you have that solution, then you just gently shift the frame that they see the issue in to what your solution would provide. And when you do that, you come across, rightly so, as someone who's not just trying to push a sale through. You're literally interested in what your prospect's going through. You're interested in their world. Either you're fixing a negative issue that they're trying to get away from, or you're creating a positive issue that they would like to go toward, or both. And when you do that, you not only help them find a solution to the issue, you do it in such a way that when you're through, instead of dealing with an objection the way most people do, which becomes like a little debate back and forth, you actually build a loyal relationship with that person.
It's an amazing process. And I have to say, as someone who's lived in the B2B solution-oriented field for my entire career, it's a great moment when you're coming to that point in the process where they get it, they see it. And also, my favorite thing is when they start telling me why they should work with me. And that's when I know I have them. And I also love that, again, throughout this process, we're asking permission. I can't promise. We're bringing them along. It's a journey together. I think the worst example possibly, and I hope we don't have any, but when we all think of being, a car salesman, it's not a pretty thing. But the truth is, I love the whole psychology of sales. I love the whole process. And I think you're right that having the right questions in your discovery is pivotal. Now, Kelly, do me a favor and pop question number 2. I have literally, when I first went for sales training, because did I mention I'm a note taker? I had all of my notes. I would go into a meeting with my yellow canary pad. So does your team follow a documented sales process? I would take my documentation into my sales meeting, and I would literally cheat and lift up the pages and look at my list of discovery questions. And I also would make sure that if they answered a question, I would try to ask another question. It's that part about digging and digging. So we, as an organization, have a documented sales process. We have a list of questions. I have this giant playbook, and really most of that playbook has now moved into our CRM in the form of templates and how we communicate with people. So Kelly, how are we doing on that poll? I'm going to say this is a big no, but.
It's not a big no. It's a no, but
That makes me very happy. No training, but they're documenting, which is how you scale, which is great. So that's awesome. So now, and this is kind of quick, but Kelly, go ahead and pop the third and last poll question, because what I want to do is I want to shift into becoming objection proof. And I have to say that it's a bit of a, and I haven't said this to you, Jeff, it's a bit of a misnomer. We're never going to become objection proof, and we're never going to get a yes from everybody. But as the book says, one of my favorite little quibs that came out of it is a gallon of no's equals a quart of yeses. So the truth is, we're trying to get to the quart of yeses, and we're trying to, in that discovery process, really ask the right questions to point people to what it is they need to see that we're trying to get them to see. So, Jeff, talk to us a little bit about becoming objection proof. And I loved how you talk about where to address objections, which is kind of in this chunk here.
Well, you made such a great point there, because if your process, if you've taken the time to understand what their value is from your proposition, and then you craft great questions that will get them discussing that, it's like you said, they will, that prospect will say what they need to hear. In the insurance industry, one of the things that I would always ask them was that if they already had a benefit plan, I would say something along the lines of, you have a lot of companies are making a difficult choice to either cut back on benefits or cut them out completely, and yet you still go to the expense and effort. Do you mind if I ask you why you do that? Why is it important to you? They will sit there and tell me everything I would ever need to hear about why they should do what I was about to ask them to do. And so they said what I needed to hear. And so as you work on through the process, that you'll find that the better your discovery is, the fewer your objections. But when you get to the point where, and another thing you can do too, in your sales conversation, we've all got certain standard objections that we'll hear on a regular basis, it's kind of baked into our own industries. We know we're going to get them. And if in your sales conversation, in your prospecting methodology, if you can address some of that, if you can actually present that particular issue along with a solution, and you're doing it in the sales conversation, then it's education, and it works just fine. But if you don't do that, and then later after you're through, they voice that same issue, then it becomes an objection that you'll need to be able to handle at that point. So part of becoming objection proof is knowing, okay, I'm going to handle some of that during the sales conversation, and I'm going to set up the stage for what I'm doing after that. And then you take them through that framework that we were talking about a little while ago. But even in your prospecting, you can do a certain amount of this, because in the prospecting part of what you do, that first group that we talked about that are going to say yes because they already kind of know they need you and they maybe recognize your brand and all that, they're going to give you the appointment. But the other two groups, when you do the things ahead of time that will create those positive touches, and then when you finally get to the point where you're asking for that first conversation, that logic of what you're trying to do is going to connect with the emotion of what you've already created, because you've had some positive touches there. And you still won't get them all, but your response ratios in the second and third group are going to rise, and sometimes it rises very significantly. It just depends on how great you are at understanding what your client could need, and then getting the conversation going so that they express that back out. So
I love the entire process. Kelly, pop those responses for me. And it's funny because I was reading the book, and one of the things I learned, as a price, exactly. I wasn't surprised, all of the above. Oh my goodness. So I have to say, price too high is one of the first things I learned in my Sandler sales training, which, by the way, is how it paid for itself. And I really want to encourage all of you, explore sales training, no matter who it's with. It is your craft. It is probably the greatest ROI you can get on investing in yourself. So what I learned is I start, like, when I get a phone call and they're calling me and Kelly, now does this. When we get a phone call for an office, first conversation, we haven't even booked a tour. We're never going to be your least expensive option. If price is your number one criteria, we may not be a good fit for you. And that's on the office. And then we do talk about price in our support services because, frankly, some of our hourly rates are perceived as, so we kind of compete in the virtual assistant arena. However, we do higher level work and we build systems. So sometimes people, when we say our hourly rates, they're like, well, that's 3 times more than I'm paying. And I say to them, well, you could be absolutely right. But I don't think it really is. I don't think what you're looking for is the least expensive hourly rate. I think you're looking for the solution that delivers the most value. And that's why we've been in business for 30 years. And that's why people come to us. And that's why they stay with us. So I totally agree with educating about the objections during the process. And the other thing that you talked about, which comes into your, your 5-step process of closing or ultimately asking for the close. You talked about, I'm a person of action. So listen, if all of you get inspired today, I didn't do my job. I want all of you who are attending this webinar today, and those of you who watch the recording, to take action. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. So you decide, are you going to make your list of open-ended questions? Are you going to seek sales training? What is it that you're going to do? But the truth is that if you can improve these things, I think the most profitable thing you can do as an organization is improve your conversion rates. And that's at every point in the pipeline, right? So if we're talking about group number 1, who's going to say yes, yay, but group number 2 and 3, if we can improve our conversion, think about it. I love when Thaddeus in the book does 25 outreaches per week. He researches 25 people. He creates his 3 touch points. He sends them out. He ends up with more meetings than he's ever had. Of course he gets those, but he's still getting a lot more opportunities. And I think that's the piece of it, is how do we position ourselves where we can get the most number of opportunities. So the concept of educating and really incorporating your objections, I think you disarm people a bit when you actually talk about the things that they're probably going to bring up.
And I want to compliment you, because what you're doing in that is exactly the principle, because
Right.
you are getting that discussion out there, and especially when it's a price issue. If I hope nobody in this organization is selling on lowest price. I hope you're selling on highest value, because that's how you really build something special.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
in your processes, if you're bringing that point out, it's a great thing. Like when it comes to sales training and that kind of thing. The way I always looked at it was I would look at my average earning per new client, and then I would look at what my investment was going to be, whether it's travel, the fees for the event, whatever it was going to be. And then I would do the math. I was, okay, how many extra clients that I wouldn't have normally got, how many would I have to bring in to make that worth my investment? What would my ROI be? And you can incorporate things like that in your sales conversation, especially when you know it's an issue that you're always going to be dealing with. And so you can
100%.
kind of plant the seeds about how they'll do it. Ask them the questions, and they will start responding in that way. You get good at what you do. But with me, once I knew how many new clients I needed to offset that investment, I knew everything after that, because I would keep repeating it and even getting even better at it, was just
turn the
jumping
dial.
my ROI that much more.
Yep,
And so-
absolutely.
And that's the kind of things you can draw out with your client.
Yeah, I know. And I can't believe how quickly time's going. I knew it would, and I knew I would love it. So if we're going to go to Q&A before too long. So if you have questions for Jeff, please put them in the Q&A section. The other thing I loved, one of the things that you've reframed for me is, when we're making these calls, I always say to people, and, Cal put a note in here, list the top most common questions and objections. That's something you can document, and you can use that during your calls. But one of the common things that I find is during that process, you said, I always say it's a numbers game. you talked about an upside down funnel. I teach a class called a one-page business plan. And basically it's a sales funnel. At the bottom is what do you want to make? And at the top is what do you have to do? So you start from the bottom up and then you work top down. It's a numbers game, whatever it is. But what I love that you said was think about not so much your average sale, because that's all the way at the win. Think about the value of every meeting that you have. Now, that's going to be a substantially lower number because you're not going to close every meeting. But if you think to yourself, every meeting I have is worth $75 because you know what your numbers are, and you know out of 15 meetings, you're going to close 3 sales, and that's going to produce X dollars in revenue. It breaks it down. And I think that when you break it down, what's the phrase? I'm going to butcher this horribly. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I think when you break it down, and you as salespeople, we have to keep ourselves motivated. And that can be very challenging. So I think wrapping your mind around the concept that every phone call I make is money, even when they say no, because it's going to lead me to whatever comes next. So.
Well, what you just said, that what hurts a lot of salespeople is that emotional roller coaster. I made money today. I lost. I didn't make any money that next day. But if they do exactly what you just described, they calculate, okay, how many contacts, how many meetings do I have to get one sale? And then what's the average worth? What happens is it changes their perspective. I used to walk in a door, and if the owner of the company said yes, if they said no, if they said I don't like you, if they said I love you, it didn't really matter because I knew I was making a certain number of dollars per company that I contacted. And it kept my emotional roller coaster more into a steady ride, like you're on a train rather than a carnival ride or whatever. So
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I have to say that, I talked before about, taking motivational training, but yet nobody wants to pick up the phone. And I know everyone feels like the phone weighs 100 pounds and, and they try and hide behind email and whatnot. And there is a place for email, but if I am selling solutions, it's not going to happen via email. I'll take the conversation offline much quicker. And there was definitely a time, just like I do remember the first time I spoke in front of a large crowd. I don't think I slept for a week and a half. That was many years ago. I'm relatively comfortable at this point. Same thing with picking up the phone and making calls. I used to feel like I was bothering people, but you have to find what works for you to shift your mindset because it's money, and we all have our careers or our businesses not because we want to make money. Money's never the goal. But what does that money do for us? It allows us to, move out of the trailer and get a better house and buy new bicycles and do for our kids and do the things we want to do. So 12:49, I kind of want to move to Q&A. I don't know how the time went so quickly, but Kelly's going to come and she's going to facilitate Q&A. But before we go to Q&A, I didn't even realize this until I think after I had read the book and I was, doing my marathon over preparing. I realized that I want you to tell us a little bit about the story of story. You talk about in your sales process, I think you call it collective consciousness, where part of how you accentuate the points that you're making is you share testimonials with your prospects. Well, yes, so-and-so was in this position and here's what they did. Right. So the power of story for all of us is huge. And you've co-authored several books, and this is something you also do. So talk to us a little bit about how, if our audience is interested, they might work with you on co-authoring a book.
Okay. Well, the reason that process works comes right back to fusion points. Because when you tell a good story or you communicate through a good story, you're going to touch that emotional part of the brain. Now, the genre that I prefer writing in is the business parable genre. So I'm going to I want to write a story so good that people can't put it down. And that's my goal. And then when I combine that with the logic of what I'm trying to teach them, they have a fusion point. They feel good about it. They'll go out and practice it and they'll retain that lesson. And so one of the things in my business model, in addition to, I'll speak on sales things. I'm doing a live event with Bob Burg in Florida soon. But when it comes to that thing, we have so many great thought leaders out there that really want to elevate their message. They want to elevate what they're doing. They've got great things they could teach, but they also know that sometimes with just the typical how-to stories, it's kind of dry. So what I'll do with people is I'll actually co-author a book with them, where we take their message and we put it into a great story. That's what I did with Lisa Wilbur on Said the Lady with the Blue Hair. It's really what Bob and I did, although with Bob and I, it was a little different because we both have so much sales training. It was really a lot of it, both of us. I'm even working on one now with a guy named Bill Cates, who's the original referral coach, who's an awesome man. So it's that process. And so what I have added into my business model, which I stay really busy at, is doing some things like that with people. And so it's a great way. But it's also why in your sales conversation itself, when you work in stories to illustrate a key point you're going to make that connection for your client that they won't get any other way. It's huge.
I completely agree. And I say this all the time. How you prospect is how you do business. So you're on display for your prospect to see, whether that's integrity, whether that's being on time, whether that's, being able to tell a story or convey a point in a way that connects. And I have to say, I've thoroughly enjoyed the parable format of both, the Go Giver and Streetwise to Saleswise. I think it is something our brains can connect with and retain. And we're all spinning a lot of plates. I know I'm probably older than most of you, so it's a little harder for me to spin those plates these days, but
you're not older than me.
We're trying to remember, right? So putting it in parable is really super powerful. So
right. And my writing coach, also my favorite author.
I've yapped for almost an hour at this point. Kelly, do we have questions?
Yes, we do. And thank you so much. This is a great presentation. As someone who's fairly new to the sales process, it's always nice to hear this. And especially knowing that you got to find your own process and find the confidence in that. That's a big one for me. So it's nice to hear it from you, Jeff, and of course from Donna as well. So we got a lot of good questions. This one was from Emily upon signing up. And this one was, once you do have that meeting with someone, once you're going through the prospect and you have the person you're wanting to talk to, the prospect, how do you capitalize on the first 30 seconds of that meeting?
In my case, what I would usually recommend is that you have, you're always going to need to start with a little bit of rapport building first. And it's going to vary based on the demeanor of that client. Are they wanting you to get down to business really quickly, or do they have some time? But I would always, in the first 30 seconds, just start in some way saying, I am so looking forward to visiting with you about some things that are going on with you to see if I can help. But I'd like to ask you a couple of questions first, if that's okay. And then I'll start building a little bit of rapport. But I make it about them. Yeah, it's about, can you help them? Like when I'm talking with someone about doing a book with them, my first question isn't to try to get them to do a book with me. It's say, okay, how would you use this? We have to look, is this going to be a good return on your investment? That kind of thing. Because I want it to be in their favor, and it can't be if I don't ask that question.
Absolutely. Donna, is there anything you'd like to add?
I would just add that the first 30 seconds is very much influenced by the preparation that you did.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay, so another one we have was something that you had discussed a little bit, and just to get a little more, for the audiences, how do you define the value proposition, and how can we use our value propositions to become objection proof? So how would you, recommend that? How do we do what you do so well?
The biggest thing about defining your value proposition is you have to be thinking through the eyes of your client. What is it about their world that gets better when they have a relationship with you? Because your value proposition, this is one of the things that I see companies, well-intended though they are, really kind of miss the boat on, because I think, we're giving them this product or service for this price, and then we do this and this and this above that, and they kind of mix it all together as being a value proposition. But a value proposition has nothing to do with any of that. It is 100% about what happens, how your client's life gets better when they have a relationship with you. So if your business model is built on even prospecting, where you actually even have to have contact with people who can't make the decision, you still need to have some way that you can communicate how they benefit from getting you in touch with a decision maker. And then when you're talking with the decision maker, that value proposition is all keyed around what gets better for them if they're doing business with me. And it may be personal life, it may be professional life, it may be they get home an hour earlier because now you're taking care of some of the crud that they used to do. Instead of being 10x, that you were being 2x. That's a book that I love anyway, but it's about making it 100% about how their world gets better with that relationship.
Awesome. All right, Kelly, we got time for one more. And then I want to make sure Jeff shares with our audience all the fabulous ways, A, they can get in touch with him and or work with him.
There's some good ones here. I guess one that was sort of a double question. So I know you talked a little bit about the process and how this should help, but how do you have any examples of how you would motivate a sales team when leads are soft? Or how do you keep that positive mindset when there just seems to be so maybe more no's than you would like?
Good choice, Kel.
That's a great question. And I'm actually speaking with a group on Friday in the Houston market. That's kind of going to be the focus of what I'm going to be doing with them. The key is this. You have to reframe the way the salesperson sees the prospecting process and what they get. And when you reframe that in two ways, number one, you're reframing it like we were discussing earlier about what a no really is. You get them thinking about what's the value of a contact. And so that they start feeling different about their work. Instead of feeling it's a bunch of zeros and then some money, they'll get to feeling different about their work. And then when you get them focused on methodologies where even with prospects they've never met in their life, they can create 3 positive touches. What you'll see happen is their whole perception changes because, yes, they still get the ones they were going to get anyway, the easy ones. But now in this group that before they never could get in the door, they'll start getting results, and that helps change their perspective. So like when I go speak to that group on Friday, I'm going to be teaching them some things about how to create those positive touches before they've ever even asked for that first meeting. Because and I'm going to challenge them. This is so funny when you're meeting with a new group, you have to challenge them a little bit. And I'm going to say, put me to the test. Pick out 25 companies that you wouldn't have contacted, but they're in your wheelhouse, and then create those positive touches and do what I teach you. Prove me wrong. I dare you. Because what happens is they get more results, and it just totally changes their perspective.
Well, one last point I'll make is what I also think about shifting mindset is you talked about this binder of testimonials, and it's, indexed by the objections so that your team can go through this binder and pull out what they need for their particular situation. And I'm a huge fan when you do one thing and you can check several boxes. So that binder of testimonials you can use obviously in your marketing, you can use it with your clients, but also I would imagine sometimes you got to get your sales team back into that binder to remind them why people love working with them. So find something to cling to that you're getting from your audience. So Jeff,
excellent.
I loved our time together. We are at the 1 o'clock mark, and I am very mindful of people's time. How do people get in touch with you? I know you've got a conference coming up. You've got this amazing book. And by the way, everything Jeff's about to say will be in your follow-up email.
3 things. Number one, you can go to jeffcwest.com and you can find out anything about me, the books. I've got a newsletter where I send out coaching twice a week about how to do these things. You can, if you want me to come in and work with your group, you'll see bring Jeff in for fusion points, and you can get information there. And even about co-authoring a book. The second thing that I'll tell you is we've got an event coming up soon. Oh, I left out one. Streetwise to Saleswise.com for the new book. It'd be terrible to forget the book promotion. Streetwise to Saleswise.com. And if you like hardback versions of the book, go to that website to get it. Because if you go through any of the other book retailers, it takes longer. But if you go through there, we've got a special arrangement with Ingram Spark. You get it quick, you get it less expensive. And then the final thing I'll talk about is we have Bob Burg and I and Kim Anjali are doing an event in Florida, June 2nd through the 4th. The first night's just a little party with a Dixieland band because that's a heavy theme in the book. This is going to be something different. It's not just speakers from a stage. It's going to be a 2-day sales intensive workshop. You'll get a lot of value out of it. And that would be saleswiselive.com. So
Awesome. Jeff, thank you. I can't thank you enough for your wisdom, for your presence, for your generosity, and for being a go-giver, because that's how we all ended up here, right?
Exactly. And it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
We're delighted. So thank you all for joining us today. I know there are some questions we didn't get to. You can email me, donna@donna-miller.com. I will route those questions to the appropriate people, probably Jeff. But we thank you for your participation. And don't forget to sign up for next month. And as Vicki, the fabulous Vicki Hart said, we are second Tuesday of every month, 12 o'clock. Put a recurring appointment on your calendar and register to attend live or receive the recording. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.